Hello, and welcome to the College Admissions Collaborative, highlighting engineering and technology virtual college fair, also known as CACHET. My name is Krista, and I will be your facilitator for the night. So just some housekeeping items to remind everyone of. So your camera and microphone are turned off. The panelists cannot see or hear you, but you can still use the Q&A feature to ask any questions at any time. You can also sign up for more sessions that are being offered, and I invite you to check the schedule to see of any schools that you might be interested in. And as always, recordings will be available. All sessions will be recorded and available at stripescan.com/cache. So I'm going to introduce now Ben from Bucknell University.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ben Kavanaugh. I'm an Associate Director of Admissions. I've been at Bucknell for 16 years. I'd like to give you just a brief overview about the awesomeness that is our campus. I'll start here. We're located in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, which is a beautiful little town of about 10,000 people, right in the central part of the state of Pennsylvania. We have about 3,700 students. We're what's known as a liberal arts college, which is kind of an outlier compared to a lot of our peers in CACHET. But I'll sort of explain that to you. I'll also talk about academics, campus life, talk about life after college, which seems surreal considering many of you haven't even graduated high school yet, and then also talk about the application process. One of the things that makes this unusual is that, we're 3,700 students. So compared to a lot of our peers, we're a lot bigger. We were able to offer over 60 majors and over 70 minors. We teach over 700 classes a year. And again, one of the things that's unusual compared to our peers is that we're not one college, we're three. So we have 60% of our students in the College of Arts and Sciences, 20% in the College of Engineering, and 20% in the College of Management. I think if there's three things we want you to take away from Bucknell, it's these three. First of all, like I said, 3,600 undergraduates. So the focus of our institution is on undergraduate education. Every class is taught by a professor. That's what the 9-to-1 student-teacher ratio refers to. Our average class size is 20. So our professors really take their role as mentors seriously. They really like teaching undergraduates. They teach 5 classes a year. So it's a really big commitment on their time. Our professors have high standards. They really want to see students be successful. They're not going to just give you grades, which I think is a good thing. There's definitely a lot of buy-in, I think, with that process. 0 refers to how many teaching assistants we have. We have 0 teaching assistants, every class taught by professors. That makes a big difference, I think. We have someone who's an expert in their field, and they're the one that's in front of the classroom. They're the one teaching. Now, like I said, our average class size is 20, and that's intentional. People often talk about the perils of having too large a class. And yes, going to a college classroom session should not be like going to a movie or a concert where you're trying to find your section and your row and your seat. No, it should be much more humane. It should be much smaller scaled. But you can also have too small a class. Imagine having a productive class session with, say, 4 people, and half of them didn't do the assignment. Now, it's not going to be the most compelling classroom experience. So 20 is kind of the sweet spot. It's a nice enough number that it really stimulates a diversity of opinions and thoughts, but it's still small enough that you get to know everybody's name, and it still feels humane. Now, I think something we like to mention, hands-on from day one, that's literal. If you were to be fortunate enough to be awarded our presidential fellowship, which is a most lucrative scholarship, you actually get paired with a professor. So you have the opportunity to do research from day one, depending on what your research interest is. This doesn't just cover STEM fields. This actually goes across the spectrum. So we have presidential fellowships available really in every single major. But that's the thing about Bucknell, because the professors teach all the classes, It's very easy to get to know them. It's very easy to form relationships with them. And it's pretty straightforward in order to be able to research, because we don't have PhD students. We don't have master's students, and professors, of course, are still passionate about discovering new knowledge, which is ultimately what research is. So the avenues to participate in the work of professors are very open. It's often just having a conversation. Like I said, I'm in my 16th year at Bucknell. I've never known a student who wanted to do research who wasn't able to. So I think that makes a big difference. There's also opportunities for students to do their own research. Every student as a senior has the opportunity to do a senior honors thesis, which is a one-on-one research project with the professor. These projects often produce papers in excess of 150 pages, which may be daunting now, but trust me, after 4 years at Bucknell, that's something you'll be able to accomplish. We also have a number of fellowships, a number of summer research programs for rising seniors. So they get to spend the summer on campus, they get a stipend, we take care of food and the room. And the students get to spend 40 hours a week working on the research project of their choice, which I think is quite exciting. Now, again, this is surreal to talk about life after college, but I think ultimately, we often reflect on the question our president, John Brofman, asks, and that question is, who are we becoming? Like, what do you want out of this experience? What do you want out of college? Like, what kinds of problems do you want to solve? Right? What kinds of questions do you want to answer? So we think a lot about life after college. We try to build a lot of practicums into our various degree programs. We also make it easy for students to connect with alums, in large part because our career services office is in fact run by the Alumni Association. There's over 50,000 living Bucknellians, and you find out pretty quickly, to be a Bucknellian is not a 4-year experience, it's a lifetime one, and those connections are very real and very lasting. Our work is not just with you as you're about to graduate. It's not just with you when you're looking for internships. It's the whole time, and it's also the rest of your life. So even after you graduate, you can come back to our career services office, and we have people that are there to assist you. Something that, I'm often asked, I'm our New England territory manager. I'm actually just outside of Boston tonight. And it's a question I get a lot in New England is, well, there are a lot of colleges around here. Why should I venture all the way down to Pennsylvania? And I always say this, our students are looking for a supportive community. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. They don't want to do college by themselves. But they also have an adventurous spirit. They're like the ships that could be safe in the dock, but they want to wander a little bit. They don't want the cookie cutter experience. So we think a lot about how do we incorporate students into our community, because that's the thing. Ultimately, when students feel like they're part of Bucknell, that's when they are the most successful. So that starts with orientation. We do a 5-day orientation. You feel like you meet the entire entering first year class. There's all kinds of activities. You'll have your first class session. You'll meet with your advisor if you haven't already met with them. There's a day where you go into town and meet the various businesses on Market Street. You really feel a part of the campus. You go through the activities fair. It starts with that, things like foundation seminars, residential colleges. There's a lot of resources that we invest in helping students adjust to college. I'll be honest, I've read many of your transcripts. They're impressive. The biggest switch, the biggest, I think, change, the biggest challenge is not necessarily academic, it's social. Suddenly, if you were to miss a class or two, no one's going to say anything. If you decided, to eat cereal for every meal, no one's going to say anything. You'll realize pretty quickly these aren't smart life decisions. I mean, they're doable, they're possible, but they're not things you should do. So we always want students to feel like that there's people there for them. Like I said, we've got 3,700 students in total. We have over 1,000 faculty and staff members to support them. Now, I love this picture because I feel like it represents a pretty typical classroom experience. You see, this is a typical size. You see the professor talking with groups of students. You don't see anybody hiding in the back. There's a lot of collaborative work. The professors work with the students. They're not lecturing at them for 4 years because, you get enough of that from your parents. There is a lot of emphasis on group work. There is a lot of emphasis on working together towards a common goal. And I think, again, that's what makes it more humane. Our students are looking for that engagement. They're looking to be part of the conversation. We do as much as we can to try to make that happen. Like I said, we're divided into 3 colleges. Our largest and oldest is the College of Arts and Sciences. It's been around since the beginning, which in our case has been 1846. Like I said, over 60% of our students are in arts and sciences. Arts and sciences also holds the bulk of our double majors. Something like 25% of our students have more than one major. And we have all the majors you would expect to find at a liberal arts institution, from, of course, biology to English to physics to political science to, of course, the greatest major ever, which is history, which coincidentally was my major in college. But we also have things you don't expect, like neuroscience and animal behavior and education. So like I said, there's a wide mix of programs, and we encourage students to get involved. Even from day one, there's courses called foundation seminars, which are these small writing intensive classes that are taught by professors in their area of specialty. So they've ranged from, the history of theater, costume design, to a close reading of the Harry Potter novels and how they compare to the Shakespearean texts of Henry V. That would have been a fun class to take. Now, again, most of our liberal arts peers would stop here, but we go further. We have 2 additional colleges. We have a College of Engineering. We've been doing engineering since the 1890s. We have 8 different majors. And again, our goal is not to be the biggest college of engineering. It's to try to be the most successful. Our goal every year is to enroll 200 engineering students and have them all graduate in 4 years as engineers. How do we do that? Well, again, it's about building a sense of collective. It's about building a sense of community. It's about emphasizing to the students, this isn't Hunger Games. We're not trying to eliminate people. So your first semester, in addition to whatever physics or calculus class you place into, you have a class called Engineering 100, which gives you an overview of all 8 of our engineering disciplines and at least 3 projects. Now, in the past, I would have said 3 projects specific to major, but this year we've changed that because we recognize that the field of engineering, like many other fields, is becoming much more multidisciplinary. So for us to restrict engineering projects to certain majors would do students a disservice. So the idea is, from day one, to give our engineering students a sense of what it's like to do engineering, the problem solving, the teamwork, the framing of the question. What is the problem we're trying to solve? And understand it's not Tony Stark in the basement trying to build a better version of the Iron Man suit. No one's got that kind of budget. So, you always have a time crunch. You always have a budget crunch. How do we work together to solve a problem? So the students understand pretty quickly, you put ego aside. It's about the work. It's about working together to solve the problem. And I'll be honest, most students love it. They get passionate about it. It's exciting. That's what they thought it would be. You may have a few students every year who decide, you know what? If this is engineering, it's not for me. It's not for me. But the idea of the class is not to weed people out, it's to include people in. So make them feel like regardless of where they're ranked, who cares? Can you do the work? Can you make it a contribution, right? Can you be part of the team? Can you help solve the problem? These are the questions ultimately of engineering. And again, our students really enjoy it to the point of, when they become seniors, they have opportunities to do research, but every senior engineer would do a senior design project. So we have full-time staff members who go out into industry and they find full-time projects for our students to pursue, real-world projects that companies are struggling to solve. So again, it's an opportunity for students to flex their muscles. And if you look at our data from placement, you'll see, especially in engineering, we do a wonderful job of placing our newly minted engineers into a grateful industry. Our third college is the most recent, it's the College of Management. Now, we've been teaching business classes for 90 years, but the College of Management's recent. The nomenclature is intentional. For us, management's about, again, how do we work together to allocate resources? How do we work together, towards a, financial solution? But I think what they do a wonderful job, something that's kind of unique, is they really leverage the interdisciplinary nature of a liberal arts college. You have majors, again, there's 8 majors within management. You have things like managing for sustainability, business analytics, but also markets innovation design, which is this unique collaboration between management and the art department. Imagine marketing with a heavy design element. We actually have a brand new management building that just opened in August. And the art department has been so pleased with this collaboration, they've actually moved in with the management college. So by adding a design element to traditional marketing, you know, people understand by the time the product exists, what need it's trying to fill. And this is very easy to sell. It changes the conversation. And again, management, you know, took their cue from engineering. They saw the success of Engineering 100 and thought, let's do our own version. So they created a class called Management 101, which is a class where students divide up, they're given a pot of money, they create a product which is sold on campus, and then they take the profits and create a service project for a local charity. So again, students are not only getting a real world sense of what it's like to work in a business, but they also feel this connection. As they say on Wall Street, there's skin in the game, right? If the students don't take the work seriously, then the aforementioned project that's been promised to the local charity will not be funded, and thus a failure. Thankfully, fortunately, in the more than 3-decade history of the class, only a handful of Management 101 teams have failed to make a profit and fund their project. So again, it's one of those activities that inspires the students, really gives them a sense of what it's like to work in the field, but also educates at the same time, which is a tremendous thing. Now, I think one of our challenges as an institution, we're in a rural location, you know, believe it or not, it's a lot to do. It's a fun experience. People enjoy being on campus. Sometimes they get so focused on campus life, they lose sight of the outside world, which is not really what we want. I mean, obviously, when you're trying to create an academic environment, you want to create a space where students can thrive, where they can be successful. But we're also trying to prepare students for the world. We're trying to prepare them for life after college. So there are times when it's necessary to take that bubble, take that ivory tower, puncture a little bit. And one way we do that is through study abroad. Pre-pandemic, over 45% of our students would typically have a study abroad experience. It's open to any major. You can do a semester, you can do an academic year, you can do a summer session. We've done about a dozen programs with our own professors. We've also got about 500 approved programs. 75% of those are in English, so there's also a number of language immersion programs. So again, if you were to ask recent graduates, like, hey, what was your most transformational experience? Study abroad, far and away. I'll say this as a middle-aged person. It's very difficult later in life to sort of go into your boss and say, hey, can I take 4 months off with pay? I just want to live somewhere else and experience another culture and experience their cuisine. And no, they look at you like you were crazy. Like, what are you talking about? No, that's not how things work. So college is a perfect opportunity to be able to do this. We're also very big on service learning. We partner with over 200 local and regional service agencies. We have about 24 classes that have service built into the curriculum. The Management 101 course I mentioned earlier, it's actually an example of a service learning course. So it's a great opportunity to be able to give back to your community, but also do it in an academic sense. Now, Bucknell is a highly residential campus. Over 90%, that's 90%, live on campus. Most first-year students like these two will have roommates. You don't have to decorate the room this way. This is a questionable design choice. I mean, clearly she's put a lot more work into with the frames. This is not a lot of effort. So however you decide to decorate, design your rooms is a negotiation between you and your roommate. But again, it's a fundamental experience to live with someone you're not related to and to get along with them, because again, it reinforces this sense of community. We never want students to feel like they're doing Bucknell by themselves. So residential housing is a huge part of that. We do guarantee housing all 4 years. On-campus housing is really the epicenter of what's going on at Bucknell. I'm also asked, well, you're in a small town. What's there to do? I mean, there's a lot to do. We have over 200 clubs and organizations. And we encourage students to get involved. I mean, I'll be honest, you could have Einstein and they'd be brilliant, but if they're not involved in campus life, you wonder how happy they would be, because part of campus life is making friends. It's developing other parts of yourself. Because I think especially for students looking at STEM fields, it's very easy to burn out. It's very easy to get so focused on the work that you lose perspective of everything else. And not only does the work suffer when that happens, I think you suffer. I mean, the last thing we want is for students to burn out, So again, we're trying to develop three-dimensional students. So we encourage involvement. We're also unusual for our size. We have Division I athletics. We're members of the Patriot League, which is a Division I league that's very intentionally modeled on the Ivy League. We're the only two D1 conferences that use an academic index. I'll be honest, if you ever see Bucknell playing on TV, we're probably double-digit underdogs. But keep in mind, we're typically in the top 5 in graduation percentage. So we may not be winning the game that you're watching us play, but ultimately we're helping to win the game of life, which if you had to choose a game to win, that's the one you want. And, Lewisburg is also a lovely town. The distance from our quad, which is the backdrop you see behind me, to Market Street, which is where both the campus theater and our campus bookstore are located, it's about a 15-minute walk. If you're like, you know what, I'm not a walker, I'm not really into that sort of thing, we have a shuttle service that runs every hour that goes through campus. It also goes downtown and also to the outskirts of the Super Walmart in case you're like, I don't just need a bar of soap, I need 36 of them. They can help you with that. The campus theater by far is my favorite thing to do in town and campus. We actually teach film classes. We have film studies classes. So they screen their films to the public free of charge at the campus theater. There aren't a lot of class sessions where you get to eat popcorn and drink sodas. So just hearing the professors introduce to films, there's always going to be a film 101 intro to film seminar, but there's also different genres. I remember a couple of years ago, a professor did a class on the history of horror film. So they were playing films like, Suspiria and Cat People and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which if you haven't seen it in a theater is quite a harrowing experience. Just imagine what the course conversation was about that film. Now, across the street from the campus theater is our bookstore, which usually if you're visiting us, we'd give you a coupon for 15% off an item, just a little inducement there. To me, I always get the question, how much school spirit is there at Bucknell? There's an easy proxy. There's an easy way to tell. For us, this entire second floor here, this is all merch. This is a 30,000 square foot building. This entire second floor and it wraps around, it's all merchandise. You see a lot of orange and blue on campus. The students really support not just their teammates, but also are very passionate about being at Bucknell. And the bookstore is a sort of a hive of activity. There's always a lot of things going on there. And of course, there are books, which I probably own too many of. I try not to go there. I literally live like a block away. So it's really, really terrible temptation. So the application process, it is holistic, which is a fancy way of saying we look at everything. My least favorite question, and I get a lot when it comes to this process, my least favorite question is, what's the one thing you're looking for to stand out? What's the one thing I can do to help me get in? And see, the process is not designed like that. It's not designed to come down to one specific factor. We use a holistic process. We want to look at everything, right? Now I'll be honest, if you're able to put, in fairness, without modesty, if you're able to put winner, Nobel Peace Prize, whatever else happens, you would probably be admitted to Bucknell if you were able to pull that one off, admittedly. But since most of us, well, all of us don't have a Nobel Peace Prize, we have to dig deeper. So I think for any applicant whose application comes across my computer, I'm trying to answer 3 questions about their candidacy. The first question is, can you do the work? Can you succeed academically? And I don't mean just get passing grades. Like, can you succeed academically and still have time to participate in campus life? Or are you gonna have to spend all your time trying to keep up with classes? So obviously grades are important. Ironically, we don't recalculate GPAs. We're much more interested in grade trends. So as your courses become more challenging, how have your grades fared? That's a more nuanced, subtle metric than just one number that gives you a GPA. Strength of schedule is very important. So that's based on what's available at your school. Of course, not everyone's got the same opportunities. We get that. So based on what you had available, how well did you challenge yourself? I'm not saying you have to take every AP class. you definitely do not want to take every AP class. At some point, you should be able to sleep. But, there should be rigor. There should be a challenge there. You shouldn't just be sort of taking the easiest classes to protect a grade point average. That's not something that typically works in college. In terms of test scores, we're test optional. This is year 3 of us being test optional. So if you want to submit testing, we'll look at it. If you don't submit testing, we will act like the concept does not exist. So whatever you prefer, I would advise you to look at our middle 50%, not just for our pool, but also the high school you attend. You could make a case that someone who's in our bottom 25% in terms of testing may be in the top 25% of the school they attend. So you can make a case for submitting there. But, totally up to you. Half the students we enrolled last year, by the way, did not submit testing. So like I said, we're sincere when we say we're test optional. We're also taking into account things like the council recommendation letter, because they give us this global sense of your reputation and what people think of you. We're also looking at the technical aspects of the essay. Now, if you have 1 or 2 grammatical errors or spelling errors, that's not a big deal for me. I don't mind that. It could happen to anybody. It's when it's when you say, well, that's why I want to go to Cornell, and you've applied to Bucknell, or you make so many, it becomes noticeable, it becomes obvious. Then you start going, oh, I don't know. That's a problem. But in terms of our calculation, academics count for about half. The other half would be what we call personal qualities, which leads to the second question. Will the student thrive here? Will they be happy here? Ultimately trying to think, well, can they leverage it? Can they negotiate? Can they manage? Can they manipulate a system, right? So we look at things like depth of extracurricular activities. I don't care how many you have. You're actually only limited. You're limited to 10 that you could put on either the Common App or the Coalition app. You could put more, but it's probably not a good idea. I focus on, what do you spend the most time doing? What kinds of activities might you continue in college? But what are the things you're really passionate about? What do you spend the most time doing? That's what's most important to me. You don't have to tick every box. We're not expecting it. I mean, activities should include clubs connected to your high school, sports, part-time jobs, family responsibilities, religious life, research, internships, family responsibilities, anything that isn't, playing Fortnite or whatever the latest shoot 'em up game is. Although I guess you have leagues for that now as well. So what do you spend the most time doing? That's what's interesting to us. Again, we're not expecting every box to be checked. We're also looking at teacher recommendations. The teachers give us a sense of what you like in the classroom, because we have your transcript, so we have your grades, but we want to know, are you teachable? Do you have a passion for learning? Do you contribute valuable contributions to class discussions? Do you seek assistance when you're having a struggle? Do you help out classmates when they're struggling? What kind of person are we getting? Our professors love students who like learning. They don't really like students who want to negotiate grades and ask for extra credit because they haven't done the work that's assigned. That's never something that's going to impress a college professor. Of course, the personal essay is a big part of this. The personal essay is probably the least understood, probably the most challenging thing for students. I've yet to meet a student who's excited about writing a personal essay. Why did we require it? Well, for our perspective, we had 11,000 plus applications last year. We had a record number. So you need parts of the application that go beyond data, right? You need something personal. We read the essay to get to know the student, right? That's the reason. It humanizes the application. It's something you can't fit in an algorithm. As much as we love algorithms, they're human creations like anything else. So there's a couple of tactical mistakes students make with the essay. First is language, its tone, its voice. Often the students are told to write the essay like a creative writing project. So we get these flowery, overly verbose, especially opening paragraphs. And you feel like I'm being punched in the face a few times, which is not a nice feeling. It's not a creative writing project. We read 50 of these a day, by the way. So the key is to start quickly, to get into the narrative quickly. The goal for us is to be able to read your essay once and understand what you're saying. It's not to use what I call a Faulknerian sense of language. You don't want to read an application and have to look up words every 10 seconds, especially to find out those words haven't been in common usage since the 13th century. It doesn't impress a reader, it just irritates them. I want to get into the narrative quickly. I want to get a sense of what you're saying. I think if anything else, you always want to ask the question, why am I telling them this? Why am I telling this story? Why is this compelling? Because I want to get to know you. So I want to find something that's interesting to you. So the topic you pick should be compelling. So to me, focus on narrative, focus on word choice. Don't pick the most complicated words you can. Pick words that sound like you. And don't work on the big ending, big beginning, work on the big ending. That's usually more effective anyway. You want to finish on a high note, not necessarily start on one. You want the essay to build something. Now, again, I read the essay to get to know you. So the topic I don't care about. I guess I care about why you care. For example, I've read hundreds of essays about swimming, which sounds like the most miserable activity in human existence. I mean, it's boring. You're just going back and forth in a pool. You're counting laps. You smell like chlorine. You have to get up super early in most cases to get pool time. And then when you get out, you look like the Brad Pitt character from that movie where he ages backwards, right? And I'm sitting there going, and it's physically painful. Like it hurts to swim any kind of distance. Like it physically hurts. And I'm sitting there reading this application and I'm going, why do you swim? Why do you do it if it hurts so much? And most students don't answer the why. So if you can answer the why, you've gone a long way in terms of writing an effective essay. You don't have to be Shakespeare to write a good personal essay. You just have to write about yourself, right? And I'll be honest, I'm an old guy. It's been years since I've been your age. I don't know what it's like to be a contemporary high school student in modern day America. So I find your lives interesting. I find your struggles interesting. I find your stories interesting. The key is for you to find your own story compelling, right? So focus on something that's interesting to you. Then you've got a good shot. Will the essay make up for a mediocre academic record? No. But what it does do is help us, right? Because ultimately we want to admit students that we want to see be successful. And sometimes with the essay, you just read an app and go, man, this seems like a really cool kid. This seems like somebody, man, if we admitted them and enrolled them, they would be fantastic, or they would have a great experience. They could go out in the world and do tremendous things, and we'd be part of that. We'd be a small part of that. Yeah, that's why we do the work. We're looking for those students who could create a lasting impact. Which leads to the third question, and this is the one that's the hardest to predict. The third is, how competitive are you in the major? So I'm the territory manager for New England, for example. So I'm doing 1,000 first reads on the applications up here. Now, we have various admissions officers have their own territory. So every application, the first read is done in part by the territory manager, but we admit by major. So every application gets looked at multiple times by multiple people, but we ultimately admit by major. So there's 4 categories. There's engineering, which is a committee I serve on. There's science, there's management, and then there's arts, which is everything else. So, how do we answer why the major? Well, we do it in part with the question, why? So we literally ask you, what is it about the major you find compelling? So it's not an essay, it's 250 words, but again, it's another opportunity to be thoughtful. And all this process is about, for us as a first reader, is trying to find reasons to say yes. We're trying to find all the positives we can. So by the time the committee gets to file, they're going to be convinced to admit you, or worst case scenario, a wait list. That is the goal. So in terms of our deadlines, November 15 is the ED1 deadline. January 15 is the ED2 deadline. We don't really treat ED1 differently than ED2. Both of the rounds are binding. Regular decision, also January 15. In that round, we have answers by the end of March. We do offer financial aid. I wish it was easier to do that, but unfortunately, there are 2 forms to fill out. The CSS profile really jumpstarts our process, but the FAFSA also has to be filled out. I'm often asked, do you have scholarships? We do. We actually have a separate scholarship application, which is live now. So you can log on to our website, fill out the scholarship application, and choose which of our scholarships you want to be considered for. So if you are on campus, which this presentation is designed in large part for that, I would answer a couple of questions. You'd be fixing to take a tour. this is the route you'd go on. You can see this is a 400-acre campus, but this part is only maybe half of that. There's also, actually this way, across the street, you've got our soccer field, you've got the baseball and softball field, and then further on, you've got the art barn and the golf course. Now, the golf course takes up a large amount of real estate as well. So this is the part of campus that you would regularly be on, unless, you know, you were like an animal behavior major over here, or you're playing some of the sports. So, but yeah, that's my presentation. I don't know if anybody had any questions they wanted to ask. Let's see if I can. There we go. So like I said, if you have any questions you want to ask, feel free to put them. I think they're in the Q&A. So let's see. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat my email address. If anyone has any questions, they can feel free to shoot me an email. So, here's a question. Let's see. What do you think are the best ways to make up for a lack of classes at your school related to the major you want to pursue? I don't know if that's necessarily a problem. I mean, I think it depends on the major. Like, let's say you want to major in, I don't know, economics. I mean, in most schools, you may have 1 or 2 classes. Let's say you want to major in, I don't know, Russian. How many schools offer that? So I think it depends on the major. There's not an expectation that in every major you're going to have coursework that's going to be relevant to it. You know, like I said, we offer over 60 majors. So we have way more topics of coursework available than is available at most high schools. Now, let's say you're looking at a STEM field. Yeah, obviously love to see lots of math, lots of science. You know, we required 2 lab classes between bio, physics, and chemistry, but you know, you can be admitted into the College of Engineering with your highest math being pre-cal. A lot of it is going to depend, frankly, on what's available at your school, because not everyone's got the same opportunities. I mean, I went to a high school in the Deep South where, you know, the most challenging math class was actually pre-cal. We just didn't have AP Cal. We didn't have Cal available at the school. So, you know, I don't think, in many cases, I don't know if it's necessarily going to matter, because, you know, we're not expecting students to replicate a lot of the courses because they just aren't available. Okay, I was just told I did not send my email address to everybody. I will rectify that now. All right, everyone should have that. Sorry about that. Even at the best of times, I still find Zoom a little befuddling. So, like I said, I can, so I put my email address. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to email me. I'll stay online for a couple more minutes in case anyone has any questions they'd like me to answer live. If not, then, you know, I'm sure you'll have a wonderful evening. All right, well, looks like there aren't any more questions. So again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and hope everyone has a good night.
Thank you so much, Ben, and thank you to Bucknell University as a whole for joining us tonight. Thank you all for joining the CACHET Virtual College Fair. There will be a quick survey after you close this window. Please fill that out. Also, I invite you to check out other college fairs and sign up for more sessions. And as always, a recording will be available at strivescan.com/CACHET. Thank you so much and have a great night.